are going to the Flagstaff house. We know A+. He's a very controversial musician. He's a musician turned politician. He supported the candidature of President Akufo-Addo when he was candidate. Now he is making allegations against two deputy chiefs of staff, Abu Jinapo and Asensu. Can't remember his other name. And these two guys, he claims that they take money, they demand money, in fact, and then they give people who want to see the president access to him. Since then, the president has made some observations. Some say the president should have condemned the comments. Subsequently, A+ has come out to apologize. The president has ordered the CID, the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service, to investigate any allegation of corruption made against his appointees. The investigations are on. I'm talking to my editors and I'm asking Richard, we have heard A+ talk on the Super Morning Show on Joy FM about going to meet with the CID. When you heard him, did he sound convincing?
Well, I think that first of all, I mean, it's really funny. Corruption wouldn't just go away, and as far as politicians or human beings are concerned, I must say, corruption wouldn't just go away. And A+, I mean, it's not enough for you to say that somebody is corrupt. I mean, I can easily make such allegation that you are corrupt, but it's up to me to prove. And to think that we've been here before in the past, people have made such allegations and they've gone scot-free. It was really...
Do you think the guy should sue them?
Well, I think that now that the CID has come in...
Do you think Asensu Boakye and, what do you call it, and Abu Jinapo should sue him?
Well, I think we should wait for the outcome of the CID investigations. Now they've taken the matter...
Do you think something will come out of that investigation?
Well, we can't preempt. We can't. You see, but let me read something to you, Malik. When I first heard this, then it took me to the Bible. Proverbs 6:16. It said, there are 6 things which the Lord hates. 7 are abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imagination, feet that be swift in running for mischief, a false witness, and somebody who tells lies.
Reverend George Asekere.
You see, if you have been accused before, you will appreciate certain things. And I think I have been there before. Somebody can accuse you in a calculated manner that will convince everybody. If you are familiar with the Bible, Joseph and Potiphar's wife, the woman comes with a guy's shirt, he wanted to rape me. If you were there, will you disagree? Absolutely. You are likely to go by what she is saying. But it ended up not being the case. So anytime I hear allegations of corruption, I'm tempted to keep quiet. A+, for God's sake, telling us that people will pay money, or these chief of staffs are demanding money from people. In effect, who are the people who will be going to see the president? Not everybody. Are you telling me that big wigs, if they want to see the president, the 2 deputy chief of staffs will have that power to stop them?
Maybe they're not big wigs of the party. Maybe they're business
Malik, I mean,
yes. So
I would say I have had a chance of meeting the vice president one-on-one, and that was like a month ago. And I don't know what A+ is saying, but maybe he has some evidence. But like they say, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Mm-hmm. He was at the studios of Joy FM. He was asked, now you cut oil or you move oil, whatever he does, and what are the details of your contract with Boss? What did he tell us? I mean, this is a man who is championing anti-corruption campaign, and he couldn't even tell us, I mean, the details of his contract or dealings with Boss. Do you get it? So, I mean, if you want...
Yeah, and by Boss, you are talking about the bulk oil storage company.
Yes. So if you want, I mean, the truth to come out, I mean, for people to know you are clean, then you should be prepared to tell us, I mean, for instance, your role with Boss. I mean, it's a starting point. you want to accuse people of being corrupt, and corruption comes as a result of lack of transparency and all that. And you come and sit in the studios or Joy FM.
But if he has a business, if he has a business dealing with boss and he's unwilling to disclose the details, it doesn't necessarily mean that his allegations are false.
No, I'm not saying that his allegations are false, but he should also subject himself to the demands of, I mean, journalists, for instance. People want to know. I mean, if I have a clean business,
probity and transparency,
exactly,
and accountability.
Of course, if I have a clean business, I wouldn't be, I mean, hiding, because I know I had it genuinely. I want it fair and square. Do you get it? So I'm not saying, I mean, his dealings or whatever he had with he has with boss was done via corruption. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that it's just an example. You are accusing people. Set the example that people are trying to be opaque and all that, and this is me. This is what I'm doing. So take
George,
my
why
example.
do you think he made the allegation?
Well, I think for me it was just he wanted attention.
That's all.
Go into real life. I mean, take Jinapo and A+. Take politics out, and you know where to position them. For me, they are miles apart, or planets apart, in terms of what each has been able to do. So why is it?
Well, but
we should be
careful. I mean, one is a musician, one is a lawyer. I mean,
yes, and you know what it takes to be a lawyer.
Well, but one would say it takes a lot to be.
Besides, in politics, NPP politics, we know Abu, and we know A+. Who carries weight?
No, but I mean, when you look at somebody like A+, this is not the first time he's gone on rampage, especially on Facebook. I mean, it's something he does virtually all the time.
So A+ doesn't have friends on my table.
I don't think.
well, I think that for me, I mean, we all support anti-corruption and all that, people to be transparent and all that. But what we must be careful about is when you are making an allegation, you should be prepared to give your evidence. You don't make an allegation and sit on the evidence, and we have to force you to bring the evidence.
We don't know whether he has given any evidence to the CID yet.
But I mean, when you listen to him, when he came to the studios, I mean, he sounded more sober. If you know A+, if you read from A+ on his Facebook, I mean, the A+ of Facebook or the A+ we know was different from the A+.
Was not the one on JoyFM
Super Money Show.
Why?
I mean, what has changed? I don't know. Maybe
but how was he that you think?
I mean, he appeared sober and more calm and relaxed and all that. I mean, obviously, I mean, everybody.
Maybe somebody has spoken to him.
Well, I mean, he should have done that before going on rampage.
Okay, that's Richard Anekwe Abi, and we are talking on Editors Forum. Our next topic is one which dominated the discussions over the weekend. It was born out of investigations by our own Manasseh Azure Awene, and he toured 10 regions of the country and found out that while the local government ministry awarded a contract for 155,000 waste bins, distributed just about 100,000 with 55,000 still pending to be distributed. And whilst the 100,000, some of them are lying waste at various district, metropolitan, and district assemblies, the local government minister, acting upon the instructions of the chief of staff at the time, Julius Debra, entered into a contract with 5 companies to produce and transport 1 million litter bins and 90,000 waste liners. It turned out that at the time that this contract was being awarded, the local government minister at the time, Collins Dauda, wrote to the Public Procurement Authority saying that he wanted to be allowed to do single sourcing because the law requires that they should do competitive bidding so that we can have value for money. But then under some circumstances provided for under the law, you can do single sourcing. So he wrote to the Public Procurement Authority asking to be allowed to do single sourcing because in his view, at the time that he was making this request, Ghana was heading towards the rainy season and cholera was likely to abound, and that was likely to claim lives and property, claim lives. Therefore, he wanted to be allowed. There was an urgent need for waste bins. So Public Procurement Authority should allow them to do single sourcing. Manasseh points out in his investigative piece that in October, at the time that the letter was written in Ghana, everyone knows that this is dry season and not rainy season. Why the local government minister said that this was rainy season and therefore there was an urgent need for waste bins, we still don't know. Be that as it may, the contract was awarded $74 million contract. Manasseh finds out, and he claimed, in fact, he took documents from the companies. He took pro forma invoices from the companies supplying. By the way, all those 5 companies belong to the JOSPONG group. He took pro forma invoices that indicate that a waste bin of 140 liters, the one that they were supplying to the state, is sold at 150 Ghana cedis. But the contract says a waste bin of this capacity should be sold at $60. Manasseh did conversion, adding the cost of transportation of 20 Ghana cedis per waste bin, and the amount he arrived at is 258 Ghana cedis. So whilst on the open market, the waste bin is sold at 170 at most, including transportation, these 5 companies belonging to the JOSPONG group are selling these waste bins and the liners to the state at, in his view, very, very high cost. In fact, the waste liners on the open market, one of them costs 0.98 pesos, less than a cedi. In the contract, they are selling one at $15+ each. This is a story which has dominated the discussion over the week about waste bins and waste liners. My editors are still with me in the studio. Let me start with you, George. When you hear that your government procured waste bins, he hasn't distributed all of them, and then proceeds to procure some more, how does that make you feel? Do you have waste bin in your house?
I don't. If I say I don't based on what the state distributed. You see, when I read the work that Manasseh did, so many questions were running through my mind. It appears that the people who are in charge of us do not know us. If you sit in Accra and it is raining and you are given a nationwide contract, say in February, March, and you think Ghana is Accra, so it is raining everywhere, you'll be making a mistake. But the question is whether, when you go through the civil servants and their files, they make provisions for us to award such contracts bit by bit. That's the question. Then the amount involved, 258 as against 170. For me, that is not news. Fine. If you are going to build a 6-room classroom, 6-classroom block, you know the amount it costs. If the government is going to build the same thing, it might cost you 50 times the price. So normally it is a way of looting the states by the people up there. Well, we should be in a position to tell whether we are able to, as a country, revert to the market value price and whether that is the way to go. So with this work, I don't think that is my thing. I don't think the JOSPONG company did any wrong. I think the state made a mistake. Yeah, if I'm a businessman and I come to you and it is even 50 cedis, and I'll get away with getting that contract from you at 1,000 cedis, it means I'm smart, and you should rather clap for me. So those who awarded the contract should be held responsible. They should come and answer questions. Of course, if your conduct or misconduct should lead to some financial loss, you should answer questions, because these are taxpayers' money that is used to do that. Elsewhere, people are looking for water to drink. They are not getting. People are looking for basic things. They are not getting. So if you are spending this money and we are not getting the desired results, you should be answering to us. And it should start somewhere. Maybe this should be the beginning.
Of course, the JOSPONG group issued a rejoinder, and they explained that, well, they have not supplied the waste bins yet. Of course, we never said in our story that they supplied the waste bins. They also explained that the cost included distribution, which is not in the contract. They explained that they were going to use virgin materials, which is also not in the contract. And so those are the things that they explained. And they said that this was pre-financing, which is also why the cost is up. So that's explanations they offered in their.
I don't know if
their agenda.
you have benefited from contracts from the state, or you know somebody who has done
I'm
it.
not that lucky.
Well, probably if you are lucky, or you know those who have done it. That is the way people make money. That's how they make money.
No, but you see, I think Malik, first of all, we are always treating the symptoms. We are not looking at the root cause of the problem. Let's say, I mean, let's look at this particular case. I don't want to say, for instance, there was an act of corruption or whatsoever, but I think that first of all, we should know our problems. And as
But we know the problem. We
no,
know it's
no,
cholera.
you see, no,
And
you
we
see,
want
you
to
see,
deal with
we don't
disposal
know,
of
no, you
waste.
see, we don't know the problem because we are treating the symptoms of it. What is it the first time we are distributing beans? Look, if people think that beans are so essential to them, they will find ways of getting one. And you see, it's all about the mindset.
In fact, Manasseh found out that the bins were not distributed because in many areas the people don't need them. And in some areas they were actually using them to store water. So the assemblies had to take a decision to rather perforate them in order that the people cannot use them to store water again.
And we are still signing contracts to get more. You see, I think that the problem is so big, we have to sit down and look at how to deal with the problem of cholera. Solving the problem of cholera is not just about distributing beans. I mean, it's a behavioral problem. And we are tackling it from, a perspective that would not solve the problem entirely.
Do I hear you upholding Kofi Bentel's argument that in this country, whenever there's a problem, we will create a procurement opportunity out of the problem?
Exactly. And you see, for me, I think that cholera is a big deal. I mean, it's an issue that we need. I mean, 60 years of independence, and we are still talking about cholera, and cholera is not going to leave Ghana, at least for the next 50 years.
When you have cholera, it means you have eaten human excreta. That's what it means.
And why are we here? And you see, and we are rather committing more resources to distribute beans. Do we even know where these refuse would be put from the individual homes? I mean, just about 2 years ago, we had a problem about is it Ajin Kotoku or Ajin Kojo? The refuse dump.
There's Ajin Kojo. That's Ajin Kotoku. Yeah,
Ajin
Kotoku.
So that's Ajin Kotoku, right?
Yeah, Ajin Kojo is where they demolished the houses.
Exactly.
They were on,
so how are we treating our refuse? I mean, our landfill sites. I mean, it's a problem we are not looking at, and we are just creating more problems for people to take advantage of. I mean, for me, I think that much as we need refuse containers or whatever it is, I mean, it's a part of a bigger problem that if we commit resources, we'll probably solve the bigger problem of cholera and not be talking about waste being where people have an opportunity to make money or profit from it. I mean, profiting is good. I won't lie to you. I mean, businesses are into it to make money, but we should make money in areas where, I mean, there's money to be made.
George, is it a concern to you that the local government minister at the time, Collins Dauda, wrote a letter in October saying that we are entering the rainy season, when everyone knows that in Ghana, whether north or south, October is certainly not rainy season?
It is not surprising to me. In the public sector, things are done anyhow, quote unquote. You see funny things. That is why sometimes somebody is employed to process people's salary. A file will be lying, then he's not working on it, and he's telling you that it's not matured. So it takes 6 months. That tells you the nature, the kind of people we are. And so for me, it is a way of making money out of the poor. Nothing is new. Look, I have worked in the local government ministry before, and it will shock you. I went to a certain district in the Bonoaf region sometime, but that was during the regime of J.A. Kufuor. The government had procured fertilizers and tractors and other things for farmers. Individuals hijacked these, and a chief executive of the assembly called me and said, look, you are a journalist, be very careful. He said, we are in power. If you joke, I'll call Asabi, we will sack you. There is a new district, keep quiet and watch the way things are done. And I had issues with that. I wrote to the head office, and the regional director had to call me and say, look, young man, Here in public service, you don't fight with bosses, because whatever is happening, every other person there is aware. So that is the difficulty in the system. I remember former President Kufuor met philosophers at the University of Ghana. They came from all over and said it took him 2 years before he understood the details, intricacies of the civil service. So there are a lot of things going on there. And when you get in there, it is not that easy to find them.
But these decisions, George, were not taken by civil servants. It was the chief of staff who wrote a letter to the minister saying that they should take steps to procure these waste bins.
Yes.
And then the minister wrote to the Public Procurement Authority asking to be allowed to do single sourcing. So it's not civil servants, these are politicians. The chief of staff is a politician, the minister is politician. The only other people you would say were civil servants were the Public Procurement Authority.
The chief director of the ministry is supposed to know better. So when the minister brings a letter, you can say, Honorable, we don't need these things at this time.
But the chief director cannot do that. Can the chief director override?
If you are a competent chief director, you override that decision based on evidence. Chief director, Honorable Minister, it is not rainy season at this time.
No, but at the end of the day,
but the letter was not written to the chief director, it was written to the Public Procurement Authority.
But there's no way the letter could have passed through without the chief director seeing it.
No, but then
there's no way.
For me, I don't know the governance process of a ministry, but I don't think, I mean, the chief director can override
the decision of the minister. Especially when it is coming from the presidency.
Oh, the presidency is not made up of some monsters. There are human beings there. They are human beings. Malik, for God's sake, if you want to go and see the president and go through the process, you will see him. It's not difficult.
Yes, but if the chief of staff writes to the minister to take steps to procure waste bins,
yes,
and the minister writes to the PPA, the chief director cannot stop that process.
Question is, so are there?
And why are you blaming the chief director, not the people who have written the letters?
Because the people are, you see, politicians, if you get closer to them, you hear the kind of demands people make. So chances are that the chief director the chief of staff may not be in the position to know the realities on the ground. So he writes to you, the minister. It is possible.
No,
but you don't expect the chief of staff to know what is happening in Congo. It is not possible.
Essentially, what
he relies on information. And so you, the technical man on the ground, should be able to tell the chief of staff, look, Honorable, I think this is a good idea, but it is only when you do that and the chief of staff rejects it, then you have a point.
I get your point.
We haven't done that.
I think perhaps what we should be doing in this country, we should be holding people accountable. So, for instance, in a situation like this, if you're going to hold a minister accountable, then it means that a chief director, we should also drag you along. So you would have now, henceforth, you have a situation whereby if people disagree, let's say a chief director disagrees, he would have to leave a trail which says that, okay, so Mr. Minister, what you are doing, I don't agree with you, and you are doing it against my will. So in future, when there's a dispute, then we can go back to it and exonerate him. Other than that, you would have to resign to show your disapproval. I think that's the way to go, because we can't have a situation whereby we always blame the ministers when they are civil servants who are also part of the game.
And George, again, at the time that this request was being made, there were 150,000 bins which had been procured in 2014.
Yes.
And those had not been distributed. In fact, there were 55,000 still with the company. The company had written to the local government minister asking to be directed as to where to take these other 55,000 waste bins. And the local government ministry wrote back and said, please hold on, we don't have a place to keep them yet. So at that same time, they were writing to be allowed to procure 1 million.
No, but it's funny, George, it's funny. If you don't have space for 55,000, where are you going to get a space for 1 million? And you see, it goes back to the issue I was saying. The problem isn't the waste bins. I mean, the problem of cholera isn't just about the waste bins. So why is it that the people who are taking the decision to procure the waste bins, why don't they know? Of course, I mean,
there is not possible
there's a procurement opportunity
to know,
in there.
They are dealing with, the chief of staff is dealing with so many things. So it is for the chief of staff. Look, maybe we have a budget for the year. We want to procure this number of waste bins. So for me at the top,
So
mine is to give
so
you
this
the
was
letter to
in-
go
this
ahead.
was around November, October,
Yes,
November.
Yes.
So when is the budget prepared?
It starts from September.
No, the budget
The budget
process,
for the year, for
yes,
that year.
the process starts
Yeah.
very
No.
early.
it
Okay,
starts
so,
very early.
so this is in 2016.
Yes.
When was the 2016 budget prepared?
Because the budget would normally be pushed at, I think, November to about also.
Of the previous year.
Yes.
So,
I have to just check.
so when that budget was prepared, was there a provision for 1 million waste bins?
That is what we want.
And if there was a provision, is it the local government ministry which would have prepared the budget saying that we need this, or it is the presidency which would have known that there's a budget for waste bins?
It is not necessarily the case that everything should be captured in the budget. There's always what they call miscellaneous. So that in the unlikely
But
event that
miscellaneous
there's a
for
natural
where?
disaster,
Is it in the ministry or in the presidency?
it can be
Where is
anywhere.
this miscellaneous?
It can be anywhere. Remember, there's some amount of money allocated to the presidency. It is agreed and
Yes,
accepted
for
in
the
our budget.
presidency, not
Yes.
for ministerial
Yes, for
work.
the so if there's a disaster, the presidency can decide to use part
This
of
one,
its
there's no
allocation.
disaster. The presidency just ruled
Oh,
to
cholera
local
was a
government
disaster.
minister.
Cholera.
There was no disaster. We are saying that the letter said take steps to procure waste bins
Yes.
so that when the rains come, there won't be cholera. That's what the letter said.
Based on what we experienced the previous year.
No, the letter didn't say that. The letter just said take steps to procure.
Well, I've
this.
not read that letter. But the point I'm making is that look, it is not possible for the people at the top to know everything. That is
Yes,
why we
which is
have
fact.
implementing
We know that.
agencies.
No, but it's
So
I
when
think,
there's
I,
a
think, I
problem-
think it's an indictment for you to sign a multi-million-dollar city contract and say you don't know everything. You are the chief of staff. You're supposed to know everything.
You can't know everything.
No, you see,
You
I think
can't
that I
know
think that
everything.
I think that we give people the leeway. You're going to sign a contract on my behalf, a contract which is supposedly inflated by over 130 million, and you are telling me you don't know everything.
Remember the way we do things in this country. You bring proposal, and I'm going to read what you have brought. If it's convincing, I act on it. So if you are my lieutenant and I
in this
trust
case,
you,
George,
yes,
there was a letter asking for the waste bins. There may have been a justification for it. I
Yes.
don't know. But there was a letter, and the letter said, okay, so the fact we now know is since November, when that contract was awarded, November 2016, we are in September, right? Not one waste bin has been supplied. Where is the agency?
there's no agency.
But
So
the
who should be
letter,
held- who
the
should
letter to the PPA said there was
Sole
agency,
sourcing.
Yes.
and therefore allow them to do single
So
sourcing.
the letter was copied to people at the implementing level. My problem is we having a problem with the people at the top, leaving those who have been paid to implement it.
We are actually not having. We are just looking at the issues, and we are saying, okay, so Richard, we know that all 5 companies belong to one company.
Mhm.
We know that Colin Samoa is he's in charge of a group dealing with procurement and all of that. And his point is waste bins certainly cannot fall within the category of urgent materials or within the category allowed by the Public Procurement Act to do single sourcing. Do you share that view?
Well, I think that yes, it goes back to what you said initially. For you to have sole sourcing, you would need to create an environment. You would need to create the need for it. And one of the needs they cited was the onset of the rains. And of course, I mean, like you rightly stated, we all know the weather pattern of Ghana. October, I mean, we can't say we are in the rainy season or we are entering into the rainy season when we are not. And if you want to use October for our rainy season, let's say we are looking at around May, April, thereabout, we know we are about 5 months away. So obviously, there's no urgency in that particular letter they even wrote to the PPA. So for me, I think that it's an issue that we need to look at it holistically. It's not just about the issue of the waste bins. It's an issue about sole sourcing. I mean, how the process has been abused. Sole sourcing, it's perfect, but it depends on the reasons people abuse when they want to go for sole sourcing. That's where the problem is. The problem is not sole sourcing. The problem is about the people who try to take advantage of the process. Because if nobody had stated the rains, they wouldn't have probably made a case for sole sourcing, because it's the rains that they use to make the case for the sole sourcing. So
and George, yesterday Kuku Kwating, Deputy Finance Minister, raised an issue on News File, and his point was, the law does not permit you to wait for an emergency to happen.
Okay.
So that you can activate that and use single sourcing. Say, for example, you know that the rains will come, and you are preparing a budget, and you are preparing a budget in November the previous year, and you know that there will be rain, and you didn't make any provision in your budget, you didn't take any steps to do competitive tendering or bidding so that you can get the best value for money for the supply of the waste bins. You wait when it is at the nick of time, then you use urgency as a basis. He said the law does not cover that. Doesn't he have a point?
For me, he's got a point. But I've always maintained it is a way of making money from the state. The people doing it are aware of what to do. They just create a conducive environment to be able to make money from the taxpayer. Simple.
You think this was, Kofi Bento would say, create, loot, and share?
Well, I think it looks like that.
So waste bins. Is that your final comments on that?
Yes.
For me, for my final comment, I think that we need to go beyond some of the symptoms of the issue. I mean, if you're looking at dealing with cholera, we have to go beyond supplying just waste
So we should
bins.
supply people with toilets in their homes.
And I think it's part of the problem. Let's look at how we can have a conversation, how people will have access to better sanitary conditions than they are currently having, and not just giving them waste bins and people be using them for water. Some do not even know what to do with the waste bins.
Okay, so let's deal with it comprehensively. You are watching Editors Forum, and we are talking about waste bins. We have talked about the Kenyan case. We have talked about Senate. We have talked about A+'s allegations against two deputy chiefs of staff at the presidency, which have become a subject, of some investigations by the Criminal Investigation Department, because the president says any allegation against his appointees should be investigated. Now we are moving on. Let's deal with, I think, IMF. We know that the MPP, whilst in opposition, took a stance against the IMF program. In fact, then vice presidential candidate Mahmoud Bawumia had predicted in 2014 that if nothing changed, his view was that Ghana was going to go to the IMF and ask for a bailout. We know that the government at the time dismissed his claim, but fast forward 2015, Ghana was out for a bailout. The president and the government at the time said it went to the IMF for policy credibility. Be that as it may, there was $918 million at stake. The MPP consistently criticized it. As late as just a month or two ago, President Nana Akufo-Addo said that the IMF program will not be extended. The extended credit program with the International Monetary Fund will not be extended. Now we know that it will not end when it was intended to end. Various explanations have been given. Have my editors been convinced? Let me start with you, Richard. What got us where we are?
Well, I think that the problems of Ghana, especially the economic challenges we had, started largely in 2012. What we witnessed, I mean, we had a huge budget deficit. I mean, by budget deficit, I mean that we spent more than we actually made. So if I run a home, let's say my income is 1,000 cedis and I spent 2,000 cedis, I've spent more than I earned.
So if some money you don't have.
Yes, so that's where the problem started from. And we were not able to deal with the problems of 2012, the huge deficits we witnessed. I think it's about 11.2% in 2012.
Almost 12%, yeah.
Almost 12% in 2012. And we're not able to go, sort out that issue.
We're able to cut it down
substantially. And it ran into 2015 where we had to go to the IMF. I mean, it went to a point whereby donors were not giving us funds because they thought that we were not, I mean, really organizing ourselves well, and that the only way they can deal with our government is to go to the IMF. So that's, I mean, if you remember, they said policy credibility. By policy credibility, they meant that let's go to the donors, let's go to IMF, so the people that we deal with will know that we are dealing with the IMF and they are doing something to correct our problem. So basically, that's what happened, and that's what brought us here. And so 2015, we went for the extended credit facility program, and it was, I think, $918 million.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why even the IMF hesitated in giving us that facility was that it would span an election year. I don't know if you remember, we spent close to a year back and forth with the IMF before they even agreed, because in their view, I mean, you speak to people, I've spoken to people in Washington, and they wouldn't speak on record though, but they will tell you that, I mean, it's dicey for Ghana going through an election year with an IMF program.
Why?
Why? Because, I mean, you know, in that part of the world, the electoral cycle always affects how a government spends. Do you get? So government are always bound to, I think except 2004 or so, or one of the elections, but almost every election year we balloon the deficit. And 2016 wasn't an isolated case, and we saw it. And it's one of the reasons why the IMF program had been extended, because last year we recorded deficit. We were supposed to have done about 6.7 or thereabout, and we did almost double digits. And such
9+.
And such an occurrence actually sets the entire IMF program backwards by more than a mile. And for me, I was really surprised when the finance minister said they are not going to extend the program beyond its natural end date, because I look at the figures and I was like, whoa, hold on. I mean, the figures are so bad, and the right thing for them to have done, probably they were looking at the market. They just want the confidence of the market to be stable before they can make an announcement to say they are even extending it. But
so they were misleading us deliberately.
Well, I don't. For me, I think that somebody owes us an explanation, because to the extent that when the president met the press, he stated categorically that the program will not be extended.
And that same day, the finance ministry issued a statement.
That same day, and they came out to say no. It doesn't mean we are going out of the IMF program. What the president meant was that the program was going to end with the budget cycle of 2018, which is December 2018, beyond which the program would not be extended. That's what the president said. So there was even that clarity, assuming what the president said was ambiguous, there was that clarity. And now, I think 31st, that was like some 4 days ago, I read from the IMF, and they were very categorical. And you see,
and they said that the extension was at the request
of the government. So it meant that somebody knew what they were doing all along. Do you get it? Because you can't just wake up one day and say, I'm extending the program. Because, I mean, it doesn't just work that way. You know, the IMF guys were in the country about 3 months ago for the Article 4 consultation. And the Article 4 consultation is basically like the review. You know, when you're under an IMF program, they come and they sit down with you, they look at your books, they meet with the Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, GRA, and other key stakeholder organizations, and they do their whole assessment, and then they go back to the board, and then they can give their final report. So you can't tell me that along all these processes, we didn't know we're going for a review, we're going for an extension. So I think somebody would have to come out and tell us that, okay, so the reason why we did A, B, C, D was because we didn't want the confidence of the market, which was, I mean, going up gradually, to be shaken. For me, I think that the logical thing they would have done, I mean, the performance of 2016 was to extend the budget, extend the facility, which would be logical because the government has started well. Look at the indicators, look at the figures, they've started well, and they just need to consolidate. Do you get it? And I don't know why they gave us the false impression that they're not going to extend, which would have been suicidal for me anyway, because
why would it have been suicidal if we went there because of certain conditions? It's not that we liked to go there.
No, so but you see, point is, you went there for certain conditions and you've not had them. So why going out? Do you get it? So the reasons why we went there, we started the IMF program, we were doing so well. 2016, we ended badly, and we had kind of set ourselves back. And 2017, we're just warming up a bit. So why would you now exit the program. Do you get? So they should have just completed or extended just to make sure that, I mean, they reap the full benefit of the IMF program, than for somebody to come and tell us that we are not extending, only for us to wake up one day and you are extending the program by 1 full year.
Okay, so that's Richard Nia Anekwe Abe. I think this is his area. He sleeps and drinks finance and IMF matters. Let me read a few comments on Facebook. Malik Chino says this is a great discussion. Natoma Mahmoud Badim Sugru said, I will be following it. Ali John said, Dabu, I'm watching and it is great. This is Sugulo Nuruddin. He says, yes, we are watching and listening to you in Wa East. This is Taliki Altin. I can't pronounce his name very well. He says, limit yourself to asking questions, Malik Dabu. I provide perspective. Altin, I provide perspective in order that people can understand and appreciate the issues that we are discussing. Let me come to George.
Malik,
IMF.
I've been going through this document. It's a compilation of journal articles on aid. Aid is not working, dead aid, world of aid, why we are failing, and we have graduates of aid. So it means there have been countries who have gone in there and they've come out. But let's come back to our issue. 2015, we went to IMF. We were told that we needed policy credibility. In fact, the government said it was our own homegrown solutions.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the beginning of the problem. If you are sick and you don't tell the doctor, he will either prescribe the wrong medicine for you or you die as a result. When we were going, our fiscal deficit was 10.2% in 2015. And so we didn't like it. We went in there for $918 billion. We were giving conditions, knowing very well that there will be an election year. And you and I know what we went through in Ghana as a result of that. In 2016, per the IMF condition, we were supposed to have a growth of a deficit of 5.3%. We ended up by making 9%, 2016. So if you went into a policy or an agreement, at the time your fiscal deficit was 10.2%, and in 2016, upon all the suffering your people went through as a result, you could meet 9%. I'm sure if you were the teacher, you would have failed the person. How much did we generate as a country? We said we're supposed to generate 37.9 billion. We ended up getting 33.2 billion.
And this was in 2016?
2016.
Okay.
We said we're going to spend 44 billion, which was 26% of our GDP. We ended up spending 50 billion, which was 30% of GDP. So if you've been given conditions to follow and you don't follow, what do you expect? The logic is extension. And so, for me,
at what material time did the government know these? Because the figures you are churning out were known to them. And like Richard said, they should have known offhand that this program could not end the way it was intended to end.
they knew. It was just politics.
So why were they telling us something else?
It was just politics. You and I knew.
But they have won the elections already, so there was no need giving us misleading
Remember, they
information.
won the election by the slightest margin. And so they knew there was an opposition which was a threat to them. And so the least mistake, you go out.
But would you say
And
that
the
this is
opposition
a
was
slightest
vocal
margin?
on this.
No,
Because,
but-
I mean, the 2012 election, it was...
No, we're talking about 2016.
Yes,
2016.
but the 2016, remember, it was not, say, the NDC that went into the IMF. It was the government of Ghana. And so the NDP
No, but you see-
cannot go there
no,
and say
you
it
see-
was the
you see,
former government.
What Malik is saying,
They are continuing
you see,
with an
George,
agreement
what
of the
Malik
states.
is saying that this government had no business telling us that they're not going to extend when they know they have purpose in their heart, they are going to extend the program.
Because the
Remember-
figures that you just churned out, which justifies the extension, were known to them.
Yes, at the
And
time.
yet, as late as when the president was saying no extension.
By the time the president was saying that, we had had a budget which I ran for technically 3 months. And the fundamentals put out there by the finance minister indicated that we were growing. But remember, the
No,
revised
but
figures
you
showed
see-
us something. And so, for instance, if the government took over and projected that they were supposed to say reduce the fiscal deficit by a certain margin, and they realize that, look, at this stage, we cannot do it, it is only wise
No, but you see,
to admit
George,
and go forward.
by extension, what you are saying is that, okay, so this was a decision taken in a rush. That's what you're telling us.
No,
because
that's not what I'm
of
saying.
course, as late as, when was the presidential meet the press? I mean, that was like 2 months ago.
Yes.
And you are telling me that as late as 2 months ago, we didn't know we're going to extend it.
In managing the economy, 1 month is big a time to effect a
No,
change.
but
These decisions, George, can't just be taken on the spur of the moment.
Remember,
Because there would have been extensive discussion and consultation
With
with
the
the
IMF.
IMF before you even arrive. Because if the IMF says on the request, the extension was on the request, at what time did you make? You can't just wake up one morning and send a request to the IMF and they will just approve it.
the request you had, I don't know which of them. You know, the extension has
The
been
request
twice.
for extension.
Yes.
the
There have been
request for
2
extension.
occasions. There was one for 8 months and the latest 1 year. So the extension has actually
No,
1 year,
no,
8 months.
I don't know about the 8 months one. What I know was what we say is the 8 months was the election, the program taking the full budget cycle. That was
No,
normal.
that's not what I'm talking
No,
about.
you see, that was normal because if we prepared the budget for 2018, you know, the program is originally supposed to end April 2018. So it means that the budget cycle for 2018 would end December 2018. So that would normally take the programs and initiatives of the IMF into consideration. So you can say the budget is taking the IMF program. So that is understandable. But what we are saying now, what they did was to write to the IMF and request for a waiver and ask for an extension. And that was deliberate effort. So by extension, they are saying that they want the program to be extended from April 2018 to maybe April 2019. That is for a one year extension.
Yeah, because what's the name? Deputy Finance Minister Kwaku Kwarteng has explained that it was rather the IMF, that's his claim. There was an IMF that said that if that didn't happen for this, they couldn't have ended it in April 2018 because it wouldn't have ended the whole budget cycle. They should extend it to cover the entire budget cycle for 2018, which means it will run into 2019 to cover the entire budget cycle. And he said that they agreed with the IMF's request. So his claim is actually that it's the IMF that said that given where you stand, given the indicators that you have achieved dating back to 2016 and all the problems that arose, the only way by which you can achieve the objectives for which you entered into this program is to extend it to cover the entire budget cycle. That would then mean it cannot end in April 2018 as was planned. That's his claim.
No, Malik.
Well,
you
I
see,
spoke
George,
to him.
let me
I spoke to the
read,
finance
let me
minister.
read what the IMF said in their letter. So they said the board also approved Ghana's request for waivers of non-observance of performance criteria and modification of one performance criterion and the extension of the arrangement by 1 year.
Yes.
This is where I have a problem. I spoke to Kwaku Kwarteng, and the impression I got was that it was actually the IMF that advised the extension.
That's exactly
and
what
the
I'm
government
saying.
didn't support that. So
No, but they
if
can
the IMF is
advise,
saying
and
this,
it's an
it's-
advice. You
Yeah,
get
but
it?
per what you have read,
what he
it meant
said-
Ghana requested, and the
Aha.
deputy finance minister said no. Ghana actually said we wanted to terminate it. I mean, finish it by April 2018.
And then the IMF advised. That's
Advised
what
that we
his
should
claim is.
continue.
And
Of course, that's what they would
and
advise.
That advice was, they found that advice to be persuasive, and that because he claimed actually that the IMF said, if you will not extend it and achieve some of the objectives, then there is no point even continuing in the first
But
place.
see, Malik, on the more important note, we have started with this IMF thing since the days of J.J. Rawlings. Over the period that we've gone into IMF, look at this performance of our cedi against the dollar. More than 25,000%. Check the records when we started. It means that something is not working. And these are journals I've read a lot. There are countries that started like us. We call them IMF graduates. You can look at them. Chile is one, China is one, Colombia, South Korea, Thailand, Turkey, and so on and so forth. They got to a point and they stopped. Today they are better than us. So it is now clear to us that for the NDC and the NPP, they have no way of managing our economy than to depend on the IMF. So for me, technically, The managers
but
of
they
our
don't want
economy,
to, because President John Mahama said that this should be the last time Ghana is going to
he
have
was
an
say
IMF.
for me
I,
it
th
was
I think
just
we were out
political.
of the IMF
It was
in the
political.
2000s.
Yes, I mean under the Kufuor
No,
government.
when you go out of
we weaned
IMF and
ourselves
you are
on that.
unable to sustain it
No, so I think that
for even a decade, you
no,
have failed.
No, you see, the problem goes beyond a single government. I mean, it's a process. I mean, you're talking about the CD, the exchange rate. It has to do with the structural integrity of our economy. Do you get it? I mean, if our exchange rate is weak, it's because maybe we do more imports than export.
So what do we go there? There've been
So-
instances
so-
where because
so-
of that we've
so,
gone to
I mean,
IMF.
that's one of the reasons why I would want to laud this government, because somehow we can see there's a shift, there's a deliberate attempt to move into industrialization where you have to make the economy productive.
We have tried that before.
Yes, so I mean, I'm saying that, I mean, this is in recent times with the one district, one factory and all that.
But those
I
are
mean,
things which haven't viewed. We haven't even
So,
started any
no,
of them.
but you see,
we started. We did Commander. He didn't bring any results.
No, but
in
you see,
2007
no,
we
but-
revamped
but
the
Malik,
tomato factory in
Malik,
Kalogo. It didn't achieve anything.
Malik, but you see,
The
but
meat
we
factory,
can't say for
Warungu, everything.
Yes.
but I think we still have to try. I mean, there's no alternative to not trying. Because we failed in the past doesn't mean we should just fold our arms and depend on imports. Look, I mean, jobs are being lost. We talk about unemployment. We're not creating any jobs. And the only way we can create jobs is for the economy to be productive. Do you get it?
But
I don't support.
that is not in doubt.
Yes,
Everyone knows
so,
that.
So, for
but
me,
whether
it's
we
better
are
for us to
determined
think-
and willing to do the things that will lead to the creation of jobs and improving on our productive capacity.
But you see,
Malik,
Malik,
for me, it's the lazy man's approach. Do we need the IMF to come and tell you that the civil service is choked? Get up and go to any ministry any day. Some people go there and they simply read papers. They have nothing to do. You are not creating industries and you expect to be employing. And when your wage bill is bloated, you go to IMF and say you want policy credibility. For me, it doesn't make sense. So yes, I agree. The process of industrializing is the way to go. But I think that it is enough of the IMF. We can't be in a sovereign state and have the Bretton Woods institutions dictating to us what we should do. Look at how we suffered in 2015.
The man is talking as an academic rather than a journalist. But George Asekiri, it's been great having you. Richard, it's been great talking to you. They have been my guests. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo. This has been Editors Forum. God willing, next week we will bring you another exciting discussion on Editors Forum. Until then, my name is Malik Abbas Dabo. Bye-bye.